Out front tonight, the breaking news. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg on the defense. Moments ago, Zuckerberg, on an earnings conference call, speaking to investors, addressed the thousands of pages of leaked internal documents, which paint a damning picture of the company's problems, from promoting extremism to human trafficking. And here's what he just said on the call. I'm quoting Mark Zuckerberg. Good faith criticism helps us get better, but my view is that we are seeing a coordinated effort to selectively use leaked documents to paint a false picture of our company. Well, the leaked documents that Zuckerberg is talking about are known as the Facebook papers, and they were originally leaked by whistleblower Frances Haugen. They offer a disturbing look inside the social media giant because among the allegations of Haugen's is that Facebook struggled to regulate hate speech and misinformation, which eventually helped spur the deadly insurrection on January 6th, were, done in part because they profited from all that stuff being there. The platform also, of course, now allegedly they're seeing more use by human traffickers. According to reports, Zuckerberg now claims he's retooling the company away from older users, saying his company will make, quote, serving young adults our North Star, rather than optimizing for the larger number of older people. Now, let me just point the obvious here, that when you're in a company making billions and billions of dollars and you say all of a sudden we're just going to have an age cutoff and not do anything with those people, that is like a business model implosion, right? It's not just that easy, right? Talk about losing money. All right, Facebook is now trying to put the genie back into the bottle, but the damage is done. The lies about the election have taken on a life of their own. And today, Haugen warning of another January 6th-like event unless Facebook takes much more drastic steps.
I have no doubt that the events we're seeing around the world, things like Myanmar and Ethiopia, those are the opening chapters. And so if Facebook comes back and says, only a tiny sliver of content on our platform is hate, or only a tiny sliver is violence, one, they can't detect it very well, so I don't know if I trust those numbers. But two, it gets hyper-concentrated in, 5% of the population. And you only need 3% of the population on the streets to have a revolution.
She warns of a revolution. And when you hear Zuckerberg's full-throated defense of the company, it doesn't appear he's willing to make that many changes, because according to Haugen, there's only one thing that matters to Zuckerberg, and that's the bottom line.
The thing I saw at Facebook over and over again was there were conflicts of interest between what was good for the public and what was good for Facebook. And Facebook over and over again chose to optimize for its own interests, like making more money.
So when you look at that history, just think about this, just to put some numbers out there. If they're going to focus on young people, right now 3% of their users are between the ages of 13 and 17. 18% are between 35 and 44, which, you're getting up there into the old range, right? You're throwing away huge parts of your business if all of a sudden, you say you're just going to focus on young people. It's not going to be that easy. Alex Marquardt is out front. So, Alex, what else do these Facebook papers show about the company's role in January 6th?
Well, Aaron, these thousands and thousands of pages that were leaked by this Facebook whistleblower show that the employees of Facebook were well aware that the platform that they worked for was helping fuel hate and the potential for political violence, as well as misinformation, and not just around the election last November and the violent insurrection in January that followed, but well before that. Aaron, after January 6th, we did hear from Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook, and she said at the time that she was aware that some of this violence had been organized online, but that it was largely on platforms that were less regulated, that had fewer standards, and less of an ability to stop hate than Facebook. But now what we're seeing from these Facebook employees is that they believe that Facebook was largely unprepared for what was to come, and that they really didn't take any sort of action against the Stop the Steal movement that came about after the election until it turned violent. One of the Facebook employees said that the response from the company had been piecemeal, essentially that the approach they had taken was whack-a-mole. They were taking down individuals and groups and failing to see this as a much larger movement. And so when these executives started speaking out internally and externally defensively about Facebook after January 6th, a number of Facebook employees also responded. I want to read you a quote from one of them pushing back, saying, "All due respect, but haven't we had enough time to figure out how to manage discourse without enabling violence? We've been fueling this fire for a long time, and we shouldn't be surprised it's now out of control." Another Aaron wrote, "History will not judge us kindly." This is arguably, Aaron, the biggest, one of the biggest, if not the biggest crisis that Facebook has ever faced in its existence.
All right, Alex, thank you very much. And I want to go now to senior political analyst John Avlon. He's a former federal prosecutor and former federal prosecutor Jennifer Rogers. John, no, former speechwriter and author and many things, but not a former prosecutor. Okay, thanks to both of you. John, I want to first, Mark Zuckerberg being defiant tonight, and I just read some of what he said, but he just said it on an earnings conference call. We were able to obtain the audio, so I think hearing the tone matters. Here's Mark Zuckerberg.
Good faith criticism helps us get better. But my view is that what we are seeing is a coordinated effort to selectively use leaked documents to paint a false picture of our company. The reality is that we have an open culture where we encourage discussion and research about our work so we can make progress on many complex issues that are not specific to just us.
So John, I mean, he was obviously very defensive there and taking the offense too, right? We're seeing a coordinated effort to selectively use leaked documents to paint a false picture of the company. What do you make of that?
You got to make a huge discount for his own self-interest, and the good faith criticism is coming from within his company. And these files are not simply comments from former employees. It's internal research, internal data, all leading to a very clear conclusion that its own algorithms and the economic incentives created by those algorithms is rewarding extremism, elevating conspiracy theories, and elevating the most negative content and comments in people's feeds. That's a huge problem, not just for Facebook and its earnings, but for society. And that algorithm is something well within his control.
So Jennifer, here we are. I mean, they're facing obviously the possibility of massive legal action as well, right? So Frances Haugen, the whistleblower, she says that what Facebook did day in and day out, right, was put what was good for them and their profits over what was good for the public, right? They could have pulled some of this back and they did not. How do you prove that? The documents that we have, are those enough? I mean, how do you prove that in a court?
So the problem, Aaron, is that companies like Facebook have a lot of protection from Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. You can't just sue them and win by saying, they have a platform that allows extremism, they didn't do enough to fight against the content that their users were posting. You have to have some sort of affirmative action, intentional action on their part, where they knew something and they lied about it. So the whistleblower has filed a complaint with the Securities and Exchanges Commission. If she can prove, and if these documents prove and testimony that the SEC can collect proves that Facebook lied in its public filings or to its investors about information that it knew that their platform and their product was dangerous and that they lie about that, then you can potentially hold them responsible. Otherwise, it's very, very difficult just on the basis that they did something that was dangerous.
And John, yet today, you have Haugen, who is in possession of all these documents, adamant that if they don't make changes, that she believes more events like January 6th will take place. How seriously should we take her warning?
Incredibly seriously. Because look, I think if you look at the way our collective politics have gone insane over the last several years, there are a lot of macro factors. But one of the clear drivers that has made your sort of random aunts and uncles all of a sudden come to the Thanksgiving table armed with conspiracy theories and alternative facts is their Facebook feed. And I think every case can be made that Facebook has hit sort of a big tobacco moment where their own internal research and data shows they knew this algorithm was a problem. And while Section 230 should protect platforms from anything some random person might post on their site to a large extent, the algorithms are the decisions of the own companies. And by optimizing for engagement, they ended up rewarding the most negative and extreme content. And that has helped mainstream conspiracy theories and political extremism, which has disfigured our democracy and changed the calculus for political parties in countries around the world, sometimes with deadly results.
And Jennifer, here's the thing. Even before this recent situation with the election, right, and its aftermath, there were murders committed on Facebook Live. There were horrible things happening, horrific things happening for years that they were struggling to deal with. And I spoke earlier this month to Andy Parker. You'll know him because his daughter Allison was shot and killed on live television while she was doing her job. And for years, he has been fighting with Facebook to take down videos of her murder. And here's what he told me Facebook said when it was committed to removing those videos. Mark Zuckerberg then denied pushing extreme or hateful content for profit. Here's what her dad said.
He's a liar. It's the same nonsense and the same BS that I've been hearing for 5 years. Oh yeah, this is not allowed on our platforms, and we're going to do everything we can, and yada 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 yada. And that's all you get is lip service. And until these companies, Facebook, YouTube, until they are forced in a court, through the removal of their protection from liability, they're going to just keep doing the same thing.
Jennifer, does he have a point?
Well, he's exactly right in what he said, which is until their protection is removed, it's not going to be in court, though, it's going to be in Congress. I mean, Congress can amend or eliminate the protection that they have under Section 230, but with that protection, it's very, very hard to sue them for failing to remove something like happened to his daughter. So he is right, but it takes the political will and it takes some work to happen.